Hello and welcome everyone. It gives me a great pleasure to be back with another webinar today. My name is Dr. Omar Yasser and this is your guide to implant planning, and I'm very excited to be here introducing this interesting series which is going to be light and very informative. Throughout the coming hour, following our agenda, we'll be talking a little bit about how prosthetic-driven implant planning has drastically changed our approach to implant planning, aided by utilizing the power of CBCT to our advantage, and we'll be also giving some tips on how you select the proper implant size and position when it comes to planning your cases, of course, by using our Atomica implant planner. And as always, stay tuned for a very special offer at the end of the webinar. So before we get started, let's share a brief about Atomica. So briefly, Atomica is a startup based in Atlanta, Georgia, USA, and launched early in 2022 to build innovative solutions and products in digital dentistry all over the world. Our aim is to aid dentists and dental professionals provide unprecedented patient care through a set of solutions like the Atomica S200, which is fast, reliable, accurate, and cost-effective. It also has AI scanning and imaging features that make the digital workflow even more seamless using the Atomica AI software. We also provide our Atomica AI software suite that includes implant planning, guide design, and segmentation modules, and we're adding more AI modules and applications on a monthly basis that will serve different specialties and usages in digital dentistry. So, let's get to the core content for today. The prosthetic approach to implant planning has come along with several advantages that helped enhancing the level of predictability and resulting in favorable outcomes. Thinking from a patient's perspective, it helped changing the approach instead of only focusing on bone conditions, but also prioritizing many other factors that will satisfy the patient and the dentist. So why? Why do we need to use a prosthetic-driven implant planning workflow? Well, because first, predictable treatment outcome. Starting with the end result in mind allows for more predictable treatment planning by utilizing advanced imaging technologies and virtual planning software. Second is optimized aesthetics. So allowing precise placement of implants that can support the final restoration is the most aesthetically pleasing manner, considering factors like tooth shade, position, size, and shape. Third comes enhanced functionality. So by considering the patterns by denturing patterns, it helps prevent issues such as misalignment or discomfort. Fourth, improved long-term stability. So by utilizing the prosthetic-driven planning ensures proper implant positioning and support for the final prosthesis, reducing the risk of complications. Fifth advantage is patient-centered approach. So by involving the patient in the treatment of the planning process and considering their input, clinicians can now deliver personalized care that meets the patient's expectations. Sixth is the interdisciplinary approach. Of course, by encouraging collaboration between different dental specialties, this interdisciplinary approach ensures that all aspects of the treatment, from implant placement to prosthesis design and fabrication, are coordinated effectively to achieve the desired results. So now, with all these advantages acquired, how can we put them into play? So of course, by utilizing and acquiring data provided by CBCT or a panoramic scan. But why? Why it's becoming unaccepted to plan implants on panoramic X-ray anymore? Because first, CBCT provides a 3D dimensional image, which is crucial as it enables visualization of bone volume in multiple planes, ensuring that there is no overlapping of structures or even different bone levels. Second, CBCT provides information about bone density, which is crucial for determining the quality of bone and assessing its ability to support implants. Third, CBCT offers higher spatial resolution compared, of course, to the panoramic imaging. So this means that details such as bone density, thickness, and the presence of anatomical structures such as nerves or sinus cavities can be observed with very greater clarity. Fourth is the CBCT allows for precise measurement of bone dimensions, enabling the selection of the most suitable implant size and optimal placement location. So let's take an example here using our Atomica Implant Planner, showing the advantage of the CBCT over the panorama. So right here, as you can see here in the panoramic view, the mesiodistal space for placing the implant replacing lower 6 is sufficient. But by inspecting now the 3D cuts, you can see that the buccal bone level is lower than the lingual level, which will affect the size of the chosen implant. So as you can see here, by moving the mouse on different bone areas, you can see the ounce field unit appearing, measuring the bone density, as it tells you the density of the bone at this special place. So right here, I'm utilizing the axial for better visualization of the mesiodistal space on the axial cut right here, showing different levels. And finally, CBCT scans allow you to have 3D model for better visualization and patient communication. So with the use of the CBCT and the Atomica Implant Planner, we now want to know how to determine the implant size and position. So selecting the appropriate implant size in dentistry is very crucial for the success of the implant treatment. Several factors need to be considered, including bone anatomy and dentition. Here's like a general guide on how implant size selection is influenced by these factors. So let's take bone anatomy. Under bone anatomy, there is other factors that will determine the size of the implant. First is bone density. So implants are typically placed in areas of sufficient bone density to support osseointegration, which is the fusion, of course, of the implant with the bone. Different implant sizes may be selected based on bone density. For example, with larger implants often used in denser bone to provide better stability. Second comes the bone quality. So the quality of the bone, for example, dense cortical bone or the soft trabecular bone, affects implant stability and determines the appropriate implant size. So for example, in softer bone, larger diameter implants may be preferred to enhance stability. Third factor is bone width and stability. Let me go back here, I skipped that. Bone width and stability. The dimensions of the available bone at the implant size influence the selection of implant size. So narrower or shorter bone may require smaller implants or additional bone grafting procedures to augment the site for proper implant placement. So let's jump to the second factor, which is dentition. There are several factors under dentition, which is first, adjacent teeth. So the size and position of adjacent teeth impact implant size selection. Implants should be positioned in a way that maintains proper interproximal spacing, avoiding encroachment to and on neighboring teeth. Second factor is functional requirement, depending, of course, on the patient functional requirement. We determine the implant size may vary depending on the functional demands of the patient. For example, larger implants may be chosen for posterior teeth where greater biting forces are exerted. Third factor is aesthetic considerations. So in the anterior region, implant size selection is influenced by aesthetic factors such as the size and the shape of the adjacent natural teeth, gingival contours, and lip support. So for example, smaller implants may be preferred in these areas to achieve optimal aesthetic outcomes. So now that we covered the factors that will determine the implant size, let's go ahead and see how can we determine our implant position. Implant position can be determined from 3 different aspects according to their region, whether anterior or posterior. So first aspect is the buccal palatal, where we ideally look for 2 to 1.5 of buccal bone thickness around the implant fixture anteriorly and 1.5 to 1 millimeter of bone thickness posteriorly. In the buccal palatal aspect, we also adjust to the implant to be directed at the cingulum in the anterior region and at the central grooves of the posterior region. Going for the second aspect, which is the mesiodistal aspect, where ideally try to achieve a distance of 1.5 millimeter between the implant and the adjacent root, and 3 millimeter distance between 2 implants, and this applies in both anterior and posterior region. Third aspect is the apicocoronal aspect, in which we try to position the implant to be placed at 3 to 4 millimeter apical to the adjacent cemento-enamel junction in the anterior region and 2 millimeters in the posterior region. We also determine the inclination of implant by referring and following the root trajectory, of course in relation to the occlusal plane. Why? To place the implant in the correct angulation, which helps to direct occlusal forces from the implant body to the surrounding bone in the desired pattern. So now that we covered how we get to select the proper implant size and position, let's try that in action using the Atomica Implant Planner. So let's jump to the software right here, giving a quick demonstration. So right now, after importing the scan to your Atomica Implant Planner, you get to start adjusting the orientation of the scan for a better field of planning, utilizing these 3 different aspects. You can also crop out any unwanted scans. For example, if you have excessive scan and you want to, for example, work on the lower arch, planning on the lower arch instead of the upper arch, you can crop the upper arch out. When you're done, you can go ahead and start planning. Jumping on right here, in which you now determine which area would you like to restore with an implant. So right here we have a lower right first molar, and we're going to select that according to the chart on the left hand side, highlighting that. As you can see, once I selected that on the left hand side, the mandibular curve turns on immediately. So it can automatically generate a panoramic curve for me, which I don't need to manipulate, as the software made it easy and accurate for me. As you can see right here, how beautiful it looks like. Moving forward, with the step where you get to superimpose the model over the scan. So right now I'm selecting the proper STL. And on a side note, I would love to say that our software supports all the 3D formats, which is the STL, OBJ, and PLY. So when we select the proper STL file, you get to see a quick preview to make sure that this is the correct model that you're looking for to match it with your own scan. So we're going to go ahead and load the model. And once I load the model, you see that the software automatically undergoes model matching using the AI technology. So right here, you can see how perfectly matched it is utilizing the 3D cuts down here. You see how perfectly matched. I don't need to do any kind of manipulation. High accuracy is provided by the software right here. Beautiful. So right now, if I'd love to import the antagonist, I can go ahead and load that as well, and I need to label that as an antagonist, letting the software know that I'm going to relatively match that the upper arch to the lower arch, seeking or seeing the occlusal relationship with the lower model. You can see right here. Now jumping to the next step, which is the planning phase, in which I'd love to move in a sequential manner in that step so I don't miss a step. So here's the add virtual crown, add implant, and add the nerve. At this point, you get to add all these tools, and you're going to find it up on the right corner, as you can see right here. So right now I'm currently tracing the nerve, where it only can be traced manually, but we'll be releasing a version that can be traced automatically. But always you need to QC to make sure it's following traced perfectly. Now, I'm going to go ahead and add the virtual crown or virtual wax up. And the software makes that step very easy for me, as once I select the area of interest, the software automatically will position the virtual wax up into place. As you can see right here, it beautifully placed the tooth in a very good initial position right here. Beautiful, isn't it? But of course, you always need to review and make sure it's in the perfect position right here. So I'm taking a look all around to make sure it's placed perfectly, but it saves you a lot of time right here trying to position your crown. Moving to the next step, where I get to add the implant. So of course, there's a bunch of vendors that's available. Right now, I'm assigning to a tooth. You see that here, I'm assigning an implant to a tooth. So the software will ask me which tooth you would love to assign it to. And of course, I'm selecting implant size 5.2, as this is, as I mentioned before, a posterior region where occlusal forces are exerted, as I mentioned before. So right here, I'm placing the implant. And now I'm trying to, after selecting the size, I'm going to go ahead and check the position of the implant. So I'm using that feature right here, which is called centric. Some people call it 360, which places the implant in the central position where I can go all around it, checking it. So as you can see right here, I'm positioning my implant. And the green outline is not the implant fixture, is the safety margin around the implant, which is a distance of 1.5 away from the implant fixture. That tells you something. So as long as there is bone all around between the implant fixture and the safety margin, that means that you're 1.5 of bone appearing to be around the implant. It helps you in positioning the implant in a very good position right here. So right now, as we mentioned, we're directing the implant to be coming out from the central groove, as we mentioned that. And as you can see, I placed it in a better bone area, where dense bone is actually good. And right here, I'm also positioning the implant from the mesiodistal aspect right here, also emerging from the central groove, as we mentioned earlier. I'm looking for better bone to place my implant into it. As you can see right here, perfectly placed. There's abundant of bone around the implant. Doing a little bit of adjustments and refining right here. So you see how Atomica can make it so easy for you to plan that. And of course, this is the safety margin all around. And I'm labeling here that it's away from the nerve, which is very good in relation to the atomical structures. And I can now inspect that from the 3D as well. As you can see, the extension line out from the implant is extending from the central groove. And this is how we positioned our implant using our Atomica implant planner. You see, this is how the Atomica made it easy for us. So let's jump to a very special offer right here. So here's the moment you've all been waiting for. We have a very special offer to announce to those who stayed with us so far. And the offer is 60-day free trial and unlimited export using our Atomica software suite. And don't forget to scan the barcode. You think we're done? We're not done yet. We also offer 50% discount for our fast and reliable intraoral scanner, the S200, using, of course, the promo code displayed. And hurry up, get yours before it expires. As you can see, it expires in a week. And here are some important links in case you wanted to learn more about our products. You can visit the Atomica software suite link to download the software and get your version, and the Atomica S200 link to learn more about our intraoral scanner. So I want to thank you for those who attended the webinar. And don't forget to stay tuned for our upcoming series of webinar. See you again soon.